Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for tuning back in. I'm your host, Žana, and today I have the absolute most privilege to have a fantastic guest. Chef Ismail is joining us today, and our conversation will be a little bit about everything, but mainly our umbrella will be around entrepreneurship. But Ismail, I'm so happy. I know you're so busy. I'm so grateful that you took the time to be on my podcast. I'm such an admirer of your work. I think when I always see your plates on Instagram, when you plate those, and I follow all your videos, and when you now lately comment on certain Instagram videos of like how you're preparing and what other people are doing, what meats they're using, and I think it's so fascinating. So, hello and welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and speak to me, and I look forward to a great conversation with you.
Yes, me too. So, being said, I want to jump right back in. I know that you're a private chef. Obviously, that's kind of like the umbrella of entrepreneurship where it fundamentally let you. But I am so interested in finding out, when we talk about being an entrepreneur, there's so many obstacles and so many challenges and so many hurdles and so many amazing things that happen in between. How did it really was for you? Like I actually want to go a little bit further back. So, what made you really want to become a chef? Was this something in your family? Was this somebody where you saw somebody else cooking, or how did you come to even deciding you're going to be a chef?
So there's multiple answers to that. There's multiple reasons to why I decided to become a chef. Um,
Mhm.
One of the reasons was because I mean, aside from the clear answer of it was out of passion and love for cooking, um, a part of it was out of spite, um, and
Okay.
because when I was a line cook, I had a bad chef, and I think we've all encountered a bad chef at one point or another where um, you can clearly tell that they were a toxic individual in terms of the chemistry of the team. And at one point, I said to myself, "Well, I'm gonna be a chef, and I'm gonna do everything the opposite of the way he's doing it." And I'm gonna show this guy that I can be a chef because, there was moments where I heard, from the grapevine where they would, kind of talk trash behind people's back. And so
Mhm.
that kind of motivated me to be like, you know what, I can do this job better than you can. So that's part of the reason. And then another reason was because it was a necessity type of thing. Back then, I originally wanted to be a police officer. I was going through the academy and doing all that stuff. And so when that had fallen through in terms of being hired at a police department due to some medical issues, um, I had to uh, work as a line cook. And I was supporting my son at the time. And while that was happening, I was working two jobs because, as you know, here in Orange County, LA area, at the time I was making about $11 an hour or so, which is definitely not a livable wage. And so I was working two jobs, and so the journey to becoming a chef or a kitchen manager was mostly out of because I needed the cash. And on top of that, I needed to have one single job because when you're working from point A and then going to a point B and then you're driving back home, sometimes you're spending a lot more on gas than what you're making. And so that was another reason why I decided to become a chef. Eventually, I fell in love with it, and I really wanted to take it to the next level. And I never, in my wildest dreams, that I ever think I was going to be, you know, receiving awards and the recognition and stuff like that. But I think that that's definitely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to congratulate you too, because again, I only from going on your Instagram page, I'm always so blown away the way you place the food on the plates, and it's literally art. I mean, I definitely I'm a sucker for hospitality, obviously. And so I'm always drawn to art in any kind of way. And I feel like when we do that really with love, and it's so interesting when you said that when you were a line cook and you had this person, a chef that was a really so toxic, and it was very challenging for you to kind of like survive in that environment. But I feel like it was the best teacher that you could have had in your life, because if that negative personality, if that negative environment that you had to experience would have never been placed in front of you, maybe you wouldn't even be where you are today. So I think that was a great kickstart of you becoming who you really are today, and really finding your life and your love to cooking, even though it started off with a necessity. And yeah, it kind of maybe came easy to you, but it definitely evolved into so much bigger. And to me, it shows on your Instagram videos, like I know we had several private conversations, and I'm just that to me is still fascinating, when we're actually coming out of something negative, and then now through this negativity or through this really challenging time, we're evolving into something more beautiful, and then we're finding ourselves in that. I think this is really a good essence that we can look back on and actually eventually maybe tell our grandchildren or something. So that part really stuck with me, when you said that it was really negative for you, but because that had happened, it kind of it drove your energy of like, you know what, not only will I show you, but oops, by the way, I actually love this. you
Yeah, I
know
know. As I got older and I started reading books on philosophy and, just being able or self-help books, right, as well. Um, there's a old adage that I really look back at, and I really try to instill this in my son's head, where the wise man learns from his own mistakes, but a wiser man learns from another,
Mhm.
other another person's mistake. And so, when I'm trying to explain to him, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Your generation is so lucky because it's, you got so much more technology, you have these opportunities to learn and so forth. And, I didn't have to, I had to write out my essays and all that stuff. Right. I didn't
Right.
have AI at the time. So
Right.
he's got all these tools to his disposal, and I'm just explaining to him like, you need to stay on point, because while there's other kids who are so infatuated with social media, don't care about what's going on in school, this is your opportunity to jump ahead of everybody, in terms of being studious, being a strong athlete. This is your opportunity to be,
Right.
one of the best amongst everybody, and so that's one aspect of being a father, but also as a chef now, not only am I looking at it as like, oh well, I'm looking at other chefs' mistakes, and or maybe I could have done this, or he could have done that, and just looking at it and then just implementing whatever mistakes they've made into my career, or even and then also even learning from your own mistakes, right? I was listening to a podcast this morning where he was saying that mistakes are the best things that could have happened to you, because while you're small as an entrepreneur, nobody's looking at that, right? But then as you get bigger and you start to head to the seven figures, eight figures, nine figures, then you start to, people start to like really keep an eye on you, on seeing what you're doing. And so now you have to really think, how much is this mistake going to cost me? Right? Is it going to cost me thousands of dollars? Is it going to cost me my reputation? What is it? And so, as a private chef right now, I'm pretty small in terms of cash flow, but in terms of my reputation here, like it's big, and I don't want to mess that up. I want to protect that with my life, essentially.
Yeah. No, I absolutely get it. And I really love that quote of, the wise man. And it's so funny that you brought that up, because this podcast is really the inspiration came out of that kind of like essential idea. It wasn't from that quote, but it was really the essential idea that we all are here to learn from each other's mistakes. And especially in entrepreneurship, we make so many mistakes, especially at the beginning. Because I remember myself when I first started, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to have a website and some business cards, and oh, that's enough. And then I started to go further and further, and I'm like, oh my God, what did get myself into? Social media, that's like an extra job. Content creating, wait, what?
Yeah.
And that's just a fraction of it, let alone all the paperwork that we're at one point we'll get into too, but it's just like to juggle it all, right? Like really understanding everything that comes with it, and then also essentially dividing your time into, like you said, okay, I really have to pick and choose now. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does it make sense for this reason or for that reason? Because everything is now one. Your reputation, like if you were to work, for instance, for a client that absolutely doesn't reflect your own truth about humans, for instance, about a different race or something, let's just call it, somebody would be really against another race, like you wouldn't want to work for that person. So, those are all decisions that come now with all these options that are being presented. And sometimes that's not easy. And besides, you have a son, you're a husband, I'm sure you have a big more bigger family. So it's not easy to maintain that calmness inside of you too, because it comes with a lot of stress. Like, what are, for instance, if we just talk about entrepreneurship, what are, for instance, things that you can now say you did not know going into being an entrepreneur? Like, anything, was it a specific paperwork that you didn't even think at the beginning, and now you're like, oh my God, that's part of it too? I'm just trying to help other people, because I'm all for be wanting people to really do what they really love to do, but I also completely understand the other side of being really safe in a job where you semi have a safe income and you have certain benefits and all of that stuff. So, but to me, and I don't know how it was for you, it was much more worth to really do what I love to do. Like that for me was priceless. Nobody could give me an amount of money for me to be my own person and my own schedule and my own drive.
Yeah. There were several things that really had me, surprised when I first became a business owner.
Hmm.
I expected the taxes aspect of things, but I didn't expect to have such a great detailed, like, type of the number one issue I had, I guess, was the amount of paperwork that went into doing taxes. Um, because we're so used to getting our W-2s and we just put in that number and then that's that, right? But at this time, I am my own bookkeeper, right? I literally went back to school to learn accounting so I can understand where my money's going, as well
Right.
as being able to understand, um, is this the right investment? And then if I were to sell said equipment, what do I value said equipment, if I were to resell it due to the amount of usage, right? So I don't want to go into like accounting terms because it's like
Right.
I'm trying to simplify this as much as I can. But that was pretty much the most difficult thing for me was accounting. I already knew how to do food costs. I knew how to do inventory. I knew how to do all of that stuff. But when you start to go into the devaluation of my equipment, the gas to drive from point A to point B, and then back to my office, and then um, that's all taken into account. Um, and again, at the by April, I'm really trying to like, okay, this is how much money I spent on gas. Here are my receipts because the IRS does not play. Um, they will, if they feel like auditing you, they will get you, and they will speak with you. So that's like probably the number one thing that I really had an issue with. And then I would say the social media aspect of things was another difficult thing for me because you're absolutely right. This is essentially a second job. I don't get paid through social media. Even if I get paid, even if I get like let's say I think I have a post that has 480,000 views, 380,000 views or something like that, and it's got like over 4,000 likes. I did not gain a single penny off of that. But the fact that I gained the exposure that I was looking for, that was all worth it. But there's other times where I get less than 1,000 views and I have less than 100 likes, where it's like, ah, dang, like I put in literally 2 hours of work, 90-second clip, and then it just kind of it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And
Yeah.
so trying to understand where my followers or what I'm trying to gain in terms of my niche is sometimes a little difficult because yes, I want to advertise myself as a private chef, but I also want to be that mentor for those who don't have a mentor, you know? And so I think I mentioned to you probably a couple days ago where I continuously get a bunch of DMs and sometimes it's hard to keep up because people are asking me, how do you deal with set amount of, pressure? How do you do, uh, how do you do food cost? Um, what do you look for when you're hiring someone? And just all these kinds of insights. And that's why I started the Words from a Chef uh, series, where I sit down for about a minute or so and I just talk about my personal experience and how I overcame that and what you can do as a line cook or as a chef to be able to avoid those issues or to overcome those issues if you're probably going through it. Um, but other than that, I think that's pretty much the two main things. As a private
Hmm.
chef, I already knew how to cost it out. I already know how to do all these things in terms of like, creating a business license and, trying to see if I can get my ABC and all that stuff. I can do all that, but it was more of the bookkeeping and the social media thing.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I completely understand those two parts too. Cause, just alone with creating the content, it's like, because it's almost like, you want to be interested in learning about other things, but also you want to be interesting in the things that you post, like
Yeah.
your content is supposed to be very interesting. And I found what was very challenging for me was the niche part, because my niche is so different. I'm like really I'm what I'm doing. I never met anybody that does the same that I do, in all honesty, which I'm not saying there's nobody out there that is not doing what I'm doing. I'm just saying that, if I were to type in hospitality coach, that literally goes and trains their staff and on how to carry plates and how to pour wine and how to open wine. Those are all simple things that actually every server should know, but really they don't know, because that's where a lot of mess ups come in. Or when amazing food comes out of the kitchen, there's specific ways how we need to serve this food. There's a specific way where the meat needs to be placed on the plate. There's a specific knife that needs to be used for specific dishes. And those are all things that people don't know if they just start in the industry, or if they're young, or if they're inexperienced. And so for me, finding my niche was very challenging, or is still challenging, because, I am speaking to people that have control of hiring me, but I'm also speaking to the people that work those floors, you know, because just like like giving advice to line cooks and chefs, I'm giving advice to servers and hostesses and busboys, but I'm the same way. I need to be hired by not them, but by their owners. So when it comes to the niche part, it's really challenging. But I think how, for me, how I just put a check mark beyond all of that was just to say, you know what, this is what I have to say. I truly believe my content is valuable, and I'm just going to keep moving forward, without all the pressure of like, oh my God, I don't have that many likes, or I don't have this many followers how I wish to. But fundamentally, if we were to be stopped by that, then we wouldn't even start to begin with. Because if that's things that intimidate us from the very beginning, then we would never ever go forward and really just start what really lingers inside of us and is wanting to break out of us. And so I think it's very courageous to actually leave a full-time job and really do what you really want to do for yourself, right? But did you in your own personal life experience people around you telling you, man, you crazy? What? You're gonna do this on yourself by yourself? Like, are you sure? Like, we know you good and all of that, but really? You know?
Yeah, no. My the only people that kind of were like that, actually the only person was actually my mom. Um, eh, she's old school. She's been
Yeah.
working that same job that she's at for, oh man, like over 25 years. And so she has the she's very like safe in terms of like, her position, and she knows what she needs to do. It's repetitive and she just does it, she goes home. When Even when my brothers decided to go into the personal training route and open up their own gym, you know, it's like a little like nerve-wracking for her because as a mother, she wants to take care of us. She wants to make sure that we are stable and we're good and we're comfortable. But eventually, one of the things that we me and my brothers had to explain to her was, how do I say this? Like, we're not in Mexico anymore. We're here in the United States. We're gonna take this opportunity to go and give it 100%. And if it fails, then that's that. Like, we can always look for another position. We're experts at what we do, and we go
Mhm.
from there. And thank goodness that my brothers are very successful personal trainers. And me as a chef, a part of myself as well, where I was telling myself like, can I really do this? Am I good at sales? How do I feel about, going on my own and putting my own money where my mouth is, right? And so you really have to believe in yourself and not doubt your skills, your expertise, your love
Right.
for what you're doing. And so as a chef, like, it was hard to be able to like, okay, let's move forward, and it's exciting, but the unknown is what's scary about about being an entrepreneur. And
Sure.
so when we're out there and we're not throwing money, but we're investing in ourselves, we're investing in our company, that's where things start to get real, right? Because sure, you can work at a big corporation, they're already established, but that corporation had to start crawling first before it started running the way it is today. Apple, right? Amazon, companies like that, where they started off in a garage, and now look at them; they're all over the world, throwing rockets up in space. And so it's incredible to see things like that, where it's like, okay, well, I can do that here in the States, and I can work my butt off to get to a point where I'm not looking to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or anything like that, or Tim Cook. What I'm looking for is to be comfortable, right? I want at least a bigger home, maybe a couple nice fun toy cars, and send my kids off to private school, and go from there. And that's the
Mhm.
ultimate goal. I'm not trying to look
Yeah.
for to throw rockets up in space and stuff like
Right.
that. But
Right.
that is part of the goal. But for sure, like, one thing that I always pray is to get to a point where I can start a foundation and feed the kids. And that to me is like the biggest reward I can get, is through helping others using my food and my skills that God blessed me with. And so that to me is the biggest thing that I would love to do.
Yeah. Yeah, sharing for sure. That's so important. And I'm so grateful for you to just really voice how scary it really is, the unknown, to just really move forward and not look back and really not only convince yourself, but also convince one of the most important people in your life, that had always an impact on you, that shaped you to the person that you are, and to convince her and to be like, look, I got this. Like, I can, when you yourself in here are like, shit, do I really got this? Like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, mom, I really got this. That's not easy, because now we make promises that we don't want to break, like we are telling ourselves. But I feel like fundamentally that faith, because I truly believe my idea of becoming a hospitality coach and doing this really on my own, that I've done for so many years for other people, working for them, and I just wanted to be on my own. This idea didn't come from me. This was planted inside of me since a very, very, very long time. And I think this is not something that I decided. I think it was decided for me, but my drive and really wanting to be successful and really succeeding at that, that will lead to other things, just like you said, fundamentally to have a foundation where you can just, give a whole chunk of away of that, and just make sure that kids are being fed, their families are being fed, at least once a day. That is so much around us that they don't have the privilege of just going to a home, any kind of home, and if people like you and me, when we get to a place where we are able to share with others, I think that's a good driver to really become super successful, because it's really so pure. It's not out of, how you say that, ego driven. Yes. Do you deserve to then have a nice home for you and your family? Absolutely. Do you deserve to have a nice toy car or two? Yes. But I think when the heart really is like, not only will I be good to me, but I will also be good to others. I think that's really something that is being blessed from the universe so much, because it's like, we see your heart, like the heart is so pure. There's no malicious thought behind that. And besides the fact, when something is great, something is great. I mean, the proof, how they say that the proof is in the pudding, looking at your plates. I mean, people can tell that you really know what you're doing. When I'm working with a client and then I leave that client, people really tell me like, wow, thank you so much. We've never thought about this idea, or my team was so different, or they're collaborating nicely together. Like, those are the moments where I'm like, yeah, okay, I did make a good decision. But in between getting there, it is scary. It's really scary to leave a safety net of like a full-time job and having a full-time income, and just knowing, okay, clock in, clock out, do the same tomorrow and it will be safe, kind of thing. But I feel like it's also our generation, ours, I'm saying not our children's, but like ours, to really be like the explorer, to really be like, you know what, it has been a certain way this way, and we saw that from the generation before, but we are kind of like in the middle. We're kind of like in the middle of, we could go this way, but we can also just do that,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, as first generation immigrants,
Mhm.
you're a first generation immigrant, right? Like
Yes.
we see the endless opportunities that this country is given us um, in terms of being able to do as we wish, right? Um, it's it's definitely a beautiful thing, but it's also a very difficult thing to do because we have bills to pay, we have taxes to pay left and right, and so if we're not holding our end of the bargain in terms of paying our taxes and all that stuff like that, like it's gonna bite us in the butt, you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, but at the end of the day, it's like we still can take advantage of those opportunities that are given it to us, essentially because my parents decided to cross the border and help us out, and I mean, at the time, right, they didn't know each other, but they did it, and so now that they're here, and I'm seeing, how hard my parents have worked to get to where they're at today, and I'm just telling myself, well, I'm not gonna waste their efforts of coming into this country and throw my life away, and I'm gonna do the best I can possibly do to get to where I want to be at. And when my parents always say this to me, it's a bit morbid, but like, when they tell me when I die, like, I want to know that you're comfortable. I want to know that you're happy. I want to know that you're. I want to die in peace, essentially. And so that's pretty much where I kind of like drive myself into is like, okay, well, I recently lost my grandfather. I have no more grandparents, and so now it's like, okay, my parents are next. All right, that's a cycle of life, and
Mhm.
what am I gonna do from this moment on until they pass? How are they gonna see me? Are they gonna see me as, someone that they raised right and successful and so forth, or are they gonna see someone who's still trying to figure out his way in this world? And I don't want my parents to have that doubt in me. You know what I'm saying? So
No, I totally
yeah.
know what you're saying because when you said immigrants, I'm an immigrant in this country, but I also was an immigrant in the country where I was born because my parents were immigrants in that country. So I was kind of like everywhere an immigrant where I was, I mean, obviously I was born and raised in Germany and I have everything that one need when somebody is born and raised in one country. But I'm saying like it was not really easy because when we would go back home, where my parents were from, my dad was from Hungary and my mom was from Serbia, I would be the foreigner. Oh, here comes the German. So I would never really know where I fit in. So I completely understand, and when I lost both of my parents, um, I had the similar thought, I wanted them to know that I'm gonna be okay no matter what. But my dad passed away almost 13 years ago. My mom passed away almost 6 years ago. So I was right in the middle of so many changes of my own life. But for me, it was always like what you said, it's almost like you don't want to waste our ancestors jumping through hoops doing all those things, having to endure all those things that luckily and thankfully we don't have to endure, either by being discriminated from where we're from, the way we look, that we don't speak a proper language in the country that we're in, or by our skin color or whatever it is, because regardless of what, I look different in Germany. I had a very different name, not everything but German, you know? And so I had it sometimes really challenging in school and, in later life too, because I wasn't German, and so I understand how it feels to be an outcast in a country that actually is your own country where you speak the language, but you're not theirs, you know? And so, I know when you said you didn't want to waste anybody's efforts and anybody's graciousness of because of them you got here. If they would have never jumped those hoops and those challenges, we would have never been here. We maybe would have been somewhere else. But because our parents took the challenge of like, you know what, we want to create a better life for our family, and we're going to make the first step, and we'll endure being, discriminated, being not looked at, not getting the same wage, or whatever people had to endure being immigrants, they did that. And so now it's almost like our duty to be like, not necessarily successful to the roof, but just be happy. Like the aspiration really, and this is just to become happy with the choices that we're making, and the work that we're executing. And I'm so happy that you found that for yourself because it's very rare in this world. It's so rare to speak to people and really hear them so full of passion speak about a piece of meat that they're preparing, or like some starch or some veggies, you know what I mean? And so it's so passionate about speaking about this and really hearing that fire. So I think that alone, not only your parents but also my parents are so proud of, like that we found that passion, regardless in the end what is it going to pay us, but just the drive is to do what we love. Right. And so I think that's almost so important too, because you can be in a settled job. Because I remember in COVID time, I had conversations with really big CEOs and really big people in the corporate world, and they told me, Jana, I'm so happy I don't have to do this anymore. I'm finally able to just have breakfast in peace. I don't have to sit in a car and eat a bar and be on a phone and answer an email every red light. Like I can finally just have my breakfast in peace and actually spend time with my child, you know? And so, yeah, it's like you said, it's such a cool thing to be an entrepreneur because you get to create, but it is really scary at times, to just be like, man, have that self-confidence and that self-respect and that self-drive. Because if you don't drive you, nobody drive you. Like, at your job, there's 10 other cooks. Okay, I don't feel good today. I have a headache. Can you take over my station? Sure. But here, nobody's taking over anything, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, no. I want to go back to the whole COVID thing because you couldn't have said it better. Um, as a chef, we're on call 24/7, right? I'm on vacation. I'm in New York, having dinner at a Michelin star restaurant, and I'm getting a text message from the owner. Did you order this, or something? Something has to happen. Chef, this person said this to me. He sent whatever it is. But during COVID, and selfishly speaking, a part of me was relieved that I didn't have to deal with that anymore. I could have just I'd stayed home and I played video games. I did whatever the heck I wanted to do because those are the things that I didn't get to do, as a chef. As a chef, I
Yeah.
wake up, go to work, go home, sleep. Same, and it's a repetitive thing for me, right? Even
Yeah.
on we the restaurant closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so on Mondays was my day to sit down in the office and hey, I need, to order set amount of things or whatever it was. Tuesdays was okay, what's gonna be next week's special? Okay, I'm gonna do this and that. And then also too is the chores around the house, right? I gotta wash dishes, I gotta, clean the house, I gotta uh wash my clothes, my coats, press them, make them look nice and professional because the academy what they taught me was organization and nothing else matters. Everything has to be organized no matter what it is. It's very
Yeah.
militarized at the time. And so when I was doing that, I really took that to heart and I took into the kitchen. But during COVID, I didn't have to do that anymore, right? I could just walk around in my jammies all day and and just chill, right? If I wanted to cook a fine dining meal because I was like, maybe I should practice, and I did take the time to practice my skills, and because I knew eventually we're gonna have to go back into the kitchen, and the last thing I wanted to be was rusty, right? And so being able to do all that and just taking care of everything, in terms of making sure that I'm healthy and so forth, I think that was pretty good. Now, granted, it sucked for a lot of people because I heard some horror stories in terms of like people are being locked in the house and stuff like that, um, and
Yeah.
we're too afraid to go out.
Yeah.
I mean, a part of me was just like, I don't care. I'll just stay at home and I have everything I need at home, like I'll just play video games, I'll cook dinner, I'll read a book, I'll play some Yu-Gi-Oh, I'll do something, like there's so much. I'll go back to school, which I did, went back to school and hence I learned the accounting aspect of things. And so um, during that time, I didn't waste a single second, right? I worked out, I try to improve myself and what else can I do? Cool, let's go to the Grand Canyon. Went to the Grand Canyon and explored nature, right? And that's when I started to really like fall in love with like, oh man, like there's a deeper meaning to cooking than just seeing ingredients on a plate. Now I'm looking at and I'm speaking to Native Americans in Arizona where they'll talk to me about, they talk to me about how, you know, how their ancestors went hunting and, the different tools that they used and stuff like that. And respecting the ingredients most importantly, right? Using every single ingredient that you can use in order for it to respect this living being that it gave its life to us. And so a part of me wants to say thank you, COVID, because selfishly speaking, again, you know, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to improve myself. I wouldn't have never gone back to school. I wouldn't have given myself that peace of mind. And as a chef, again, like you don't have time to work out because you're having to go back to school or back to work 12,
Right.
14-hour shifts and then back home. And the only thing you want to do is eat Carl's Jr., which was what I was doing, and going to
Right.
sleep and
And
then
sleep.
right
Right.
back to it. And so,
Yeah.
like, I don't take care of myself, right? Sometimes you don't even
Hmm.
eat. Like, during
Hmm.
my shifts, all I did was tell my cook, "Hey, get me a bread and slap some mayo and meat, and then I'm done. That's my lunch." That's all I ate, while I'm making, fine dining dishes, filet mignons and ribeyes and tomahawks and truffle mashed potatoes, and I'm doing all these things for my guests who are paying top-notch dollars for these things, and here I am eating just a ham sandwich, like, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a
It's
really
the balance of it all. Like what I really truly learned so much more about COVID was really like that finally people are getting the opportunity to understand what balance really means in life, because it is great to be a go-getter. It's great to be, in a sense, a hustler that really knows what you after and you go get that for yourself or for your family or for your loved ones. But it's really so good also to understand balance and solitude within your own self and really have the privilege of that solitude time with yourself. And it doesn't even have to be anything drawn out big. It could just be like 10 to 15 minutes in your car with yourself, no radio, no phone, no distraction, just you and your thoughts, or like in the shower. Like that's my jam. It always been, like lock the door from the bathroom and just that was my safe haven. I would just go in there, be in the shower, or just sit on the floor and just gather my thoughts or pray or just cry or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think when we are living a balanced life in general, everything comes so much easier. And then when you are really privileged to do something that you're so in love with, I don't even consider that as work anymore. For me, this is just I'm busy, but it's a good busy, like it's a happy busy. It's not even, are there parts where I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not my fave? Yes. But are there parts, most of them, of the things where I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. It's mainly that. But me remembering going and being a floor manager, a restaurant manager, a GM for restaurants or hotels or whatever, it was stressful. It was just so stressful constantly having to be at the restaurant. I mean, by 10 a.m., you have to be there and you don't go before 10, 11 p.m., before everything is done, and doing the paperwork in the office and the payouts for the waiters and the cocktail waitresses and all. Like it's a whole lot. I almost never even had a private life, which to me never bothered me because I didn't have a child to take care of. I wasn't in a romantic relationship. It was just me and life and fun, and I had money and I did everything I wanted to do, and it was great, right? So I didn't mind. But now in my life today, where I have my son, there's no way I can be at a restaurant 10, 12 hours or at a hotel. It's impossible for me. So I feel like entrepreneurship gave me that opportunity to also understand, like, okay, I can create my own schedule, but I have to put in the work that I have to put in. Like the work at a job is given to you, but here you have to create your work and keep working at creating your work, And
mhm,
so that, to finding also balance in that, because sometimes it would get to a part where I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and this, and I need that to in order to make this happen. But even here, I'm like, you know what? If it's meant to be, it's going to be. I'm going to do my very best, everything I'm capable of, but I'm not going to take away time from my child, for instance, or I'm not going to take away time from myself that I need in the morning. Like I have prayer routines in the morning. I can't live without them. There's no way I'm scheduling a meeting in between that. I'm so sorry. Like, if this means I have to wake up 2 hours earlier, then so be it. But I cannot miss out on that part that gives me for the rest of my day my own balance. And for me, that's prayer. For somebody else, it could be journaling. For somebody else, it could be, I don't know, standing 20 minutes in the shower or whatever. But But I feel like that balance is really what sometimes people are really striving for and not knowing how to quite manage because it's a lot at the beginning, like I heard a great analogy the other day at a mastermind meeting, and a lady said, her name is Sabina, and she said, "Did you know that when a plane takes off, it takes 25% of their fuel right then, just for takeoff? And it's not even in the air." So her analogy was really to entrepreneurs that you have to give so much effort at the beginning to really get it going and get up in the air. But once you are, it's kind of like smooth cruising.
Hmm.
But I thought that was a great analogy because, it is tough to get started, and it is intimidating. And, now you pick a niche for yourself that 100 other people are doing.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that's it's good that you're doing that, because you start off the day right.
Mm.
And if you start off the day right, you're going to be very productive.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, for me, I can't live without my coffee. I have to have a coffee.
All right.
And then I listen to the news. I listen to a podcast while I'm dropping off my son, and he's listening to what's going on in the world, or he's listening to, some motivational and self-help, type of thing where I don't know if you ever heard of Andrew Priscilla, um, but he goes into every Monday. I think he has well, today, right? Right. Every Monday he has a where he answers three questions about entrepreneurship, and or sometimes he'll go into like um, inspirational, like, hey, you have to work hard, you have to go from here, blah blah. And I think listening to him, even though he says all these bad words, and you know, my son listens to it, um, I think that message is the right message for him to listen to, especially as young as he is. He just turned 13. So those seeds are being planted into him. And as he gets older, he'll start to understand what the message really understood, or what they really meant. And, aside from all the cursing, but I personally don't mind it, but, I try to be like, "Hey, a gentleman doesn't speak this way, so take the
Right.
advice, but don't speak this way," you know?
Right.
Even though
Yeah.
we do it in the kitchen, we curse like sailors, um, but
Right.
in real life, I try to personally keep my language under control,
Sure.
because I'm so used to cursing in the kitchen, where it's like, well, you know what I mean. But,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get it. No, but I also think like, that when you said planting a seed, I really truly believe that we are the ones that planted the first seed in them anyway. They see us
Yeah.
really go do that. He sees you talking to a client, he sees you preparing for an event, he sees you to exchange, you know, video calls with people from all over, just like my son sees me doing these podcasts, for instance, or like really doing what I love to do. And I think with that already, such a great seed is already planted because they might not understand exactly, but they see us happy. Like they don't see us anymore the way things used to be, where you just had to go to work. Now it's like you're going to work, yes, and you're investing a lot of time, yes, but fundamentally it's really something that you want to do, and it's going to come easier. It's will it take maybe a lot of time? Probably so, but I don't think that internally one is going to be stressed out anymore like that, like someone used to be when you had to battle not only coworkers, but also, like you said at the very beginning, people that were very toxic, people that are above in their position above you that actually can, maneuver you the way they need you to move, versus you having any say so. And all of that is eliminated by really just branching out and being like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And it could be anything. If it is that you love good candles, start to make candles. Why not? If it is that you love stones, why don't you start painting beautiful stones and try to see if somebody likes them? Like I'm saying, I don't want to be naive about it. And I don't want to be all sounding like, yeah, everything is rainbow and just walk on the rainbow, But like, but fundamentally, I feel like we're here to fulfill a soul's journey. And for me, it took a while really to understand what that journey is for me. But the more I really bothered myself with myself, the more I understood it. And once I really started to follow it, the more everything fell into place. And I think that's really what entrepreneurship to me really means, that you really love what you do and you're able to create.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from with that for sure. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. But I'm so happy we had this conversation today, honestly. This was so nice. I'm such a fan of you, and I'm so grateful we've met. And I cannot wait for another collab on Instagram. I know we did that a few months ago, and it was so much fun. So much fun. We had such a great conversation. And I think people like you and I, from the opposite way of a business like a restaurant or hotel, because you're the back, I'm the front. I think this is really what we should start doing. I wish this will be like a movement where people are starting to do that, because we need the front of the house and we need the back of the house, and we need them to get along nicely and to help each other to create. Because there's nothing worse to me when a waiter takes a beautiful plate of food and just puts their thumb in it, or doesn't hold the plate the correct way, or don't place the meat in the right position. Like, I just, like, it's such a pet peeve of mine, but I can't, because this is art in the end of the day. Art is being produced on a plate, and just like art is being produced on the floor, by maneuvering everything. People know exactly what to do, where to go, what to handle, what their cue is, when to put in the next course. Like, it's all a beautiful movement of the floor. And yeah, we need to help to facilitate that. We need to help to really see the beauty of hospitality in that way.
Yeah, I think your role is such an important aspect of the hospitality industry. One thing that one of my cooks had said to me was, and he was absolutely right, if if the service was top notch, but the food was subpar, the guests will come back because there's something people pay for the experience, right? And say I go into a restaurant and they ask me my name, they ask me how I'm doing, they ask me, how's everything going? They're not overly, you know, pushy on selling me something. They kind of like explain it to me when I ask for it. And then on top of that, they're refilling my water. They're asking me, um, would you like dessert? And and so forth. Then I leave, and probably one of the biggest and things that to me one of the biggest things to me that make a huge impact is if I'm walking out of the restaurant and the host says, "Thanks for coming, Ismail," right? Or something like that, where they remembered my name. And to me, it's like a big deal because it's like, whoa, I'm coming back because they know. I come back maybe a month or two weeks later, right? I didn't make a
Right.
reservation, but if they end up, "Oh, hey, Ismail," or whatever, right? And they remembered
Right.
my name,
Right.
that just adds another level of
Of
uh
comfort.
of
It's comfort,
comfort.
and
And yeah,
it's feeling good.
yeah. So because
Absolutely.
now they're treating you like family, right? And I know that there's a lot of places that say, "Oh, we treat our customers like family," or whatever it is, right? But in all actuality, those corporate companies, they can care less. Like they just want to see,
Yeah.
hey, are you paying your final bill? Are you, okay, cool. Like we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
But when you go into these mom and pop restaurants, which I've always loved working in, um, you don't get you as a staff, as a team member, you don't get treated like a number, and your guests don't get treated like a number, right? We I had I had guests who would come in on a weekly basis. We were on a first name basis. We would talk. They would buy me a glass of wine. They would do all these things, right? And you know, we built that relationship between each other, right? It wasn't just a business transaction. It was, how are you doing? Blah blah blah. I'm not gonna say their name, but how are you doing today? How was the drive up the mountain?
Mhm.
Have you Do you want to try this new glass of wine that we have, or this new bottle of wine that we have? And then sometimes I don't even charge them for it because I wanted to get their honest opinion on it. And if they really enjoyed it, then great. They got a complimentary glass of wine, which elevates another experience because the chef is the
Totally.
one who's serving them the glass of wine. And so I think that to me is probably one of the biggest uh, aspects in terms of the hospitality. And again, your role is so important because not a lot of companies, not a lot of people understand how to hold the plates or how to go from seat one, seat two, seat three, seat four. Um, should a male waiter speak to the woman or to the man, and so forth, and it's just proper etiquette. Um, and I honestly wish that I knew you before, because then I would have brought you to my restaurant. And it's hard for me to coach the front of house, and the front of house manager says, yeah, 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 we'll do it eventually. I'm an expert, I know what I'm doing. But at the same time, it's like,
Mm.
bro, like I'm asking you to implement these and back me up. And that's another issue with management, right? If front of
Mhm.
house management does not back up the back of house management, then
Mhm.
there's always going to be conflict. It always starts at the
Always.
top.
Always. I so agree. I cannot agree more with you. Yeah. And it's essential. It's really essential for people to feel. And that can happen in a fine dining restaurant. It can happen in a beautiful corporate hotel. It can happen in a mom and pop pancake shop. It doesn't matter. But really, the essential fact of hospitality is for people to feel welcomed and well treated with respect and being attentive to. That's really the core of hospitality, because it's important for people to understand. And those little things that you mentioned, saying somebody's name when they walk in or walk on and never seen somebody, those are really little details that do matter so much. That do matter so much because it's all about guests and these days staff too. We all have a choice. We don't have to come here. We can go anywhere we want to. We don't have to come to your restaurant. We don't have to come to your hotel. We don't have to come, and we don't have to work here either. That's a whole nother thing. Everybody has a choice these days. And I feel like when people come back to a specific restaurant or place, they should be respected for that. It should be like almost like, thank you so much for coming back. Or thank you for even coming here. Thank you for choosing us instead of the restaurant down the road, you know? But I think that small detail sometimes it's forgotten a whole lot. And like you said, when people say I'm the manager, I know it all. Why do we need to hire somebody? Da 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 da. Da. I hear this a lot, because it's like I totally get it. I totally understand. But me as an outsider, or you as an outsider, as a private chef, you have a different point of view on things. We see things in a different manner. We're not in the environment every day, all day. Like we see just walking in, oh, that's an issue, but they've been dealing with the issue because they have no choice, or they don't have any other outlook, or they don't know what to do about it. And so in general, I feel like it's a great thing that we collaborate. And maybe, who knows, maybe we're the first starters that do this, that collaboration really does matter and it has an impact. And who knows, maybe you will have your own restaurant again, or more, or whatever, and then I will be there.
Yeah, no, definitely. One thing that I want people to understand in the hospitality industry is that we spend more time in our restaurants than we do
That's right.
at our own home.
That's right.
And we want our personal home, to be respected, right? When we go into our second home, which is the restaurant, I
Mhm.
want that home to be respected. I want my equipment to be respected. I want my team to be respected, you know? And when
Yeah.
you bring a guest to your personal home, right? You invite them to your home, you treat them with the utmost respect, right? You offer them a glass of wine, you offer them a glass of water, something to drink, right? Would you like to watch television? Would you like to have some music on? So how's it been going? You know? And so when we are going into our second home, that's exactly what we're doing. We're offering them, would you like a glass of water? Would you like a glass of wine? We already set the ambiance, right? And they're coming into our home. And just as
Mhm.
much as we respect them, we want them to respect us in our home, right?
Right?
This thing of
Absolutely.
snapping fingers, or hey, you know, that to me is definitely a huge no-no.
Yeah.
And when you go up to said person for the first time and you don't know who they are, of course you're going to introduce yourself, right? And sometimes the sometimes the guests don't introduce themselves, which is definitely okay. But you as the server have to know their name already as it is, right? And so I went to a restaurant called the Hobbit, and they already had our seating arrangements. They had our little card saying, you know, Mr. Torres, or whatever it was. And so as the server comes up, Mr. Torres, would you like some more water? Mr. Torres, would you
Mhm.
like another glass of wine? Mr. Torres, this is our duck from the Hudson River, and blah blah blah. And I want to know their name, but at the same time, a part of me is like, I'm expecting you to know my name because my name's already on the reservation book, essentially.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's the way I look at it, and how I see the team, how the team needs to be able to communicate themselves in front of guests.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. But that's the issue, like that being hospitable in a sense, that's exactly the training part that is missing because not everybody has the same point of view. I think me and you, of course, when we have guests in our home, absolutely, they will not go thirsty, they will not go hungry. If they're cold, we have a blanket, we have a sweater, we have socks,
Mhm.
whatever you need, it's no problem. Oh, you had it too much to drink, no problem. Use the couch. Please be safe, you know? But this is not something that comes naturally. This was teach to me too by my parents. I'm sure it was teach to you too. And this is the same philosophy that people are just needing to be teached all these amazing little things. But sometimes that part of training is so underestimated and underlooked because the expectation of hiring a server is, well, you should know how this works. But really, it's not how it works. It's really your home. Whoever waiter is waiting in your home, like you said, or bartender or hostess or whatever, you set the house rules. You set your standards. You tell them what is acceptable and what isn't. Is it acceptable for a waiter to chew gum on the floor? Is it acceptable for waiters to have their cell phone while we're working on the floor? Is it acceptable for not having staff meetings or not giving your staff a voice? Like, those are all things that whoever is the owner, like you said, it starts from the top. Whatever the top's rules are, whatever the standard from above is, it's going to trickle down to the very last person in the team. And I feel like those are things that are essential to be needing to talk over because fundamentally, whatever their idea is of how they want their restaurant or their hotel to be, like their vision, their concept, that's exactly what needs to be teach to their staff too. But I feel like there's international one-on-one service etiquette. No matter what guest comes to you, there's specific things that speak on the floor. Like when you put the fork and the knife on the plate, it means anywhere in the world the same thing. I'm done, take my plate away. But those etiquettes, a lot of people don't know. Like you said, respect your tools. You have the expectation as a chef or whatever that your tools should be respected and valued. So if a sous chef of yours uses, which I doubt you allow, but if he were to use your tools, then you expect them to be using that with respect, and not, oh, I sorry, I've dropped your knife. No. And the same way, it goes always both ways, right? Like servers are to respect the tools of the restaurant, like the glasses and the trays and everything, but also owners have to respect their servers' time, their efforts, their mindset, their brain, their what they're bringing to the table. If I have a server that is an excellent seller, should I not reward that person? Yes, I should. Yes, I should. Should I not train my other people to be on the same level like the server? Yes, I should. Why? Because it makes me money, first of all. And second of all, it helps them to grow and understand what really serving and selling means on the floor. And same in the kitchen. You know, why not teach your line cook something that only a sous chef or a chef would do? Why not? I'm not saying while it's busy, but if the person wants to learn and grow, why not? Because you're going to be that seed again. They're going to look back and say, oh, Chef Ismail, when I worked in his kitchen, he was the one teaching me how to cut juliennes nice and thin, how to angle my knife. He told me. And a lot of times I feel like people are misunderstanding that with sharing your secret sauce, oh my God, if I share my secret sauce, they know that what I know. Okay, let them know, but you're the seed planter.
Yeah, I mean, when you go into a restaurant, like for example, El Bulli, right? They don't exist anymore. But when if I were to ever see a chef coming into my restaurant, or if I ever open up a restaurant, um, if if I see that they worked at El Bulli, I'm gonna say he worked for Ferran Adria, and he knows what Ferran Adria has done. So maybe he can teach me a couple of things, and vice versa. I can teach him a couple of things, right? And
Mhm.
so the name of the chef carries a lot of weight in terms when you're working for that specific chef, right? I can only imagine how many applications uh, Chef Thomas Keller gets on a daily basis, because everybody wants to work for him. Everybody wants to learn from him. Everybody wants
Mhm.
to understand his palate and why he does certain things. And then when
Mhm.
you come out of that kitchen, then you have chefs like Timothy Hollingsworth, right? In LA, where he says, "Yes, I've worked under Chef Thomas Keller. I was the chef there and at the French Laundry, and now I have my own restaurant, Odium, and he's implementing whatever skills he learned from the French Laundry into his own restaurant, and then he ended up being on the chef's table, and competed
Right.
and ended up going all the way to the finals against other Michelin star chefs. And so, when at me as a chef, like, I would love to have Michelin stars. I would love to have a James Beard Award, and all these high honor accolades as a chef. But I also have to continuously work towards it, and eventually, and one of the things that I've always told my cooks is, when you leave this kitchen, I want people to know that you trained under me, and it's not an ego thing. It's more of like, Chef Ismail understands the basics of cooking, and he's creating a reputation for himself,
Mhm.
and he's not holding back any secrets or anything like that, because all of my cooks,
Mhm.
they know exactly what I know, right?
Mhm.
And that's because they trained, either my sous chef trained under me and my sous chef is training them, or I train my cooks personally, right?
Right.
And so that to me is like I've always wanted to instill that idea that my cooks, when they leave that kitchen, they're gonna have on the resume, Chef Ismail was my chef and he trained me. And when they get to a point where they're like, oh dang, like Chef Ismail trained them, cool, let's hire him, because I want my team to be the top notch team that they can
Yeah.
possibly be.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I totally agree. But, fundamentally, I feel like it really does come down to just really understanding that sharing really does mean that you are a teacher, you inspire, you teach. Like you do all these things together for a reason, for a reason. And there's no need to be afraid by sharing your secret sauce, because there's only one you in this world. People might take your recipe and people might take your quotes and people maybe copycat you and whatever, your content or whatever. And so that's okay. That will always happen. And people will always have their opinion too. And that's okay too. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's only one of each of us. And we're so unique. We're so unique creations. You know, we're masterpieces in our own self, created by our highest creator. And fundamentally, nobody can do it the way we can do it, you know? And so, for that fact, if you're just settled in your own self and you just know that about you and you really trust yourself and you trust your life, what do you got to lose? Okay, somebody took your sauce and tried to make something. Oh, okay, good luck. Try, you know. But in the end of the day, it's really about, giving from the heart. And just like cooking a good meal to your guests when they come in your own personal home, which comes from here, is the same way giving advice to whoever you work with. Let it be somebody that is in the same position as you or has a different position that you. None of that matters. It really matters just of really planting a seed for somebody else to get where they need to go, you know. But with that being said, podcast lovers, this was so great. Chef Ismail, I'm so grateful you came. I'm so grateful for you and your time. And I hope we're going to do this very soon again. And for you, podcast lovers, as always, if there's anything on your heart that you would like to share, if you want to speak on something, my mic is always open. Come and join me. But until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.